The bourbon didn't taste right. Or maybe it was just me, sitting in my study, staring into the amber swirl, as if it could explain why my life felt like a glitch in a system I'd personally designed to be foolproof. The lamp's golden light shimmered in the glass, steady, calm, a cruel contrast to the chaos building inside my head. Outside, October wind scraped through the neighborhood trees, rattling the shutters of the same suburban home my wife, Emily, and I had bought 3 years ago. Back then, it had been a symbol of everything we were building. Her leaving her marketing job to focus on starting our family. Me taking on extra contracts to secure our future. It should have been a perfect life. And yet, perfect systems don't fail without cause. The cause revealed itself on a Thursday. Emily had rushed in from book club, arms full of groceries, dropping her purse on the counter with a distracted, "Lucas, can you grab my keys? They're buried in there somewhere." I was midway through reviewing network security updates for a high-profile client. Still, I closed the laptop, reached in her bag, and began searching past the usual clutter, lip balm, wallet, tissues, until my fingers froze around a small pharmacy bag. I pulled it out. Trojan condoms. Unopened. Receipt dated that very afternoon. My brain didn't explode in cinematic slow motion. No, this was a clean, quiet breach. Like watching a system's fail-safes go down one after another until only a red blinking alert remains. We've been trying to conceive for over a year. She'd been the one obsessed with timing and schedules, tracking ovulation, making baby name lists, decorating a Pinterest nursery. Condoms weren't just unnecessary. They were the exact opposite of everything she'd claimed to want. "Find them," she called from the kitchen. "Yeah," I said evenly, slipping the package back where I'd found it, covering it with a stack of receipts. Years of crisis management had taught me to keep systems running while you investigate the source of the error. That night, I watched her closely. She'd recently started wearing her hair with subtle highlights, and I really noticed, how often she left her phone face down now. How her new lingerie had replaced her usual cotton underwear. How her sudden gym nights coincided with vague explanations about meeting people I'd never met. It was a pattern, and patterns could be tracked. The next morning, I poured her coffee into the dog-themed mug we bought in Portland. She smiled briefly, but I noticed her wedding ring was missing again. "Resizing?" I asked casually. "Yeah, another week," she said, looking out the window. Her plans for the day: lunch with her friend Melissa, then errands. And, another grocery trip. "Forgot milk yesterday," she said. I nodded, storing the data point. Melissa existed, sure, but most of Emily's newer friends were names without faces. Women who, apparently, never wanted a double date. The moment she left, I drove to an electronics store and paid cash for a GPS tracker. Then I called a divorce attorney, Margaret Collins, sharp as steel and twice as cold-eyed. I laid out what I'd found, every behavioral change, every inconsistent alibi. She told me exactly what evidence I'd need for the kind of divorce where Emily wouldn't get a cent more than legally required. And so, I began my quiet, methodical hunt. For the next 10 days, I tracked her every movement. Most trips matched her stories. Some didn't. Residential addresses she had no reason to visit. 40-minute gaps in parking lots of businesses that didn't exist anymore. And then, restaurant receipts for 2 entrees and an expensive bottle of wine she'd never share with me. The clothing purchases made more sense now. A body-hugging black dress, deep burgundy silk blouse, and heels with ankle straps. I kept my distance, letting the evidence pile up like perfectly stacked logs, waiting for the right spark to set it all ablaze. And on a Friday night, Emily herself struck the match. Emily was at her vanity that Friday night, applying eyeliner with the precision of someone preparing for a date she couldn't afford to mess up. "Dinner with friends from work," she'd said, casually glossing over the fact she hadn't worked in years. The black dress clung to her in ways I knew weren't for me anymore. Her hair, loose waves framing her face, looked like she'd just walked out of a salon. "Which friends?" I asked. She paused just a second too long. "Some old marketing co-workers. We try to meet once a month." I nodded, masking the rising heat in my chest. The GPS tracker under her car was already transmitting her location to my phone every 30 seconds. At 7:10 p.m., she drove off. I stayed in my study, bourbon untouched, eyes fixed on the moving blue dot on my screen. She didn't head toward any restaurant. She didn't even stay in town. 25 minutes later, she stopped at a roadside motel. I'd done my recon before. Sunrise Lodge, a single-story strip with faded stucco, a neon vacancy sign that buzzed in the wind, and enough anonymity to keep cash-paying couples comfortable. Her car was parked near the far end, away from the office and main road. Room 14. 10 minutes later, a white pickup pulled up, a contractor's truck, ladders and tools in the back. The driver stepped out, tall, broad-shouldered, flannel shirt, dark stubble. He walked straight to her door. It opened before he knocked. Emily appeared, smiling with a light in her eyes I hadn't seen in months. Not for me. Anyway, she stepped into his arms, his hands at her waist, hers around his neck. That smile, that unguarded joy, hit harder than any confession could have. I waited. Let them settle in. Let the silence between us grow like a pressure chamber. At 8:20 p.m., I got out of my car. The manila envelope with the divorce papers felt heavier than paper should. I crossed the parking lot, my steps deliberate. When I knocked, 3 sharp raps. The muffled conversation inside stopped. Just a minute. Emily's voice came, breathless. The door opened. Her eyes went wide. The color drained from her face so fast, it was like watching a light switch flip off. "Lucas, I brought you something," I said, holding out the envelope. Behind her, the man froze near the bed, shirt half unbuttoned. He looked between us, calculating fight or flight. "This is Ryan," I said evenly, already assigning him his new name in my head, even though I knew exactly who he was from my research. "Ryan, meet Emily's husband, the one she's been married to for 8 years while meeting you in motels." His jaw tightened. "I didn't." "Yes, you did." I cut in, my tone as sharp as the cold air outside. "You've been meeting here for weeks. You know her schedule. You know she's married." Emily's mascara was already smudging under her tears. "Lucas, please. It's not what you think." "It's exactly what I think," I said, pressing the envelope into her hands. "Adultery. Cited in the papers. I have GPS logs, receipts, and now, first-hand confirmation." She sat down on the edge of the bed, clutching the envelope like it might burn her fingers. Ryan shifted uncomfortably, suddenly smaller than his frame suggested. "You're going to leave this room," I told her calmly, "and you're not coming back to my house. Your things will be packed by Sunday. Locks are already changed." Ryan opened his mouth, but I turned on him. "Stay away from my wife. Stay away from my neighborhood. And if you value your work as a contractor, don't give people around here a reason to talk." I left them there, Emily with her head in her hands, Ryan staring at the floor, while the neon vacancy sign hummed in the cold night air. I didn't look back. Saturday morning began like a system upgrade, planned down to the smallest step. By 7 a.m., the locksmith I'd hired, a quiet, efficient man named Rodriguez, was changing every lock on the house. While he worked, I moved through each room, boxing up Emily's belongings with the same precision I used when securing sensitive client data. Clothes, jewelry, personal keepsakes, carefully packed and labeled. Anything we'd shared that bore real, sentimental weight. Like our wedding album, I left untouched. She could ask for it later, if she could handle the reminder. The joint bank account had already been closed Friday afternoon. Every dollar was in my name now. Her credit cards were canceled. Car insurance she'd been piggybacking off me, canceled. Cell phone plan, transferred out of my account. This wasn't spite. It was containment. When a breach occurs, you shut down every vulnerable access point. At 9:03 a.m., my phone rang. Emily. The GPS showed she was still at the motel's edge of town. "Lucas, please pick up," her voicemail began. "I know you're angry, but we can fix this. It was a mistake. I still love you." By her 6th call, love had morphed into outrage. "You had no right to track me. No right to lock me out. This is controlling and insane." By her 12th, desperation seeped in. "Where am I supposed to go? I don't have my clothes. I don't have money. Please, Lucas." I didn't answer. Not once. Sunday afternoon, I loaded her boxes into my truck and drove to her parents' house. Dan and Carol Meyer had never been overly fond of me. Too logical, too measured for their emotional daughter. Carol answered the door, confusion in her eyes. "Lucas, what?" Emily's been having an affair, I said plainly, handing her a folder. Here's the proof. The folder contained hotel receipts, GPS logs, time-stamped photos. Carol's expression shifted from disbelief to hurt in seconds. Dan appeared behind her, jaw set like he wanted to challenge me, until he saw the documentation. This doesn't mean divorce is your only option, Dan offered weakly. She chose this, I replied, carrying in the first box. She lied to me for months, built fake alibis, bought clothes and gifts for another man with our money. She told me she was trying for a baby while buying condoms for her boyfriend. That's not a mistake. That's a campaign. Carol's hand shook as she held the folder. Where is she? Still with him, probably. She's called me over 20 times. I haven't answered. For 20 minutes. I unloaded her life into their front hall. They asked questions. I answered each factually. No anger. No yelling. Just truth. And truth was heavier than any box I carried in. When I left, Dan's face was pale. Carol's was tear-stained. Emily's choices were no longer just mine to deal with. They were theirs now, too. And that was step one of my revenge. Monday morning, I was deep into a client's network audit when my office line rang. Caller ID, Carol Meyer. Lucas, she began, her voice polite but laced with urgency. Emily needs access to some money. Just enough for basics, food, gas, a place to stay while you two work this out. We're not working anything out, I said flatly. She's got a degree in work history. She can get a job. She can't just start from nothing, Carol insisted. She didn't start from nothing, I said, my tone razor sharp. She started with a husband, a house, and a stable life. She chose to throw that away. Choices of consequences. That night, a text came from an unknown number. This is Ryan. We need to talk. I ignored it. The next evening, my phone lit up again. Same number. This time I answered. You don't understand, Ryan started. Emily told me you two were separated. Practically divorced. She said. I cut him off. She lied to you like she lied to me. Difference is, I was her husband. You were just her distraction. I care about her, he said, almost defensive. Then you'll stay out of her way, I said, because her mess is about to get a lot bigger, and you don't want your name anywhere near it. I hung up before he could reply. By Wednesday, the divorce attorney, Margaret Collins, called with an update. Her lawyer is claiming you were controlling, that you monitored her movements and cut her off financially. She cheated. I reminded her. I have proof. The GPS tracker was on a jointly owned car. My financial moves were protective, not punitive. Exactly, Margaret agreed. He's bluffing for leverage. It's a weak hand. Thursday evening, Emily came to the house. Through the upgraded security cameras, I watched her pull into the driveway in a borrowed car, step out, and walk to the door. Lucas, I know you're home, she called after ringing the bell. We need to talk. I stayed in my study, watching the feed as she checked the back door, tried the windows, even attempted the garage remote, already reprogrammed. After 10 minutes, she left. Friday morning, Margaret called again, this time with a hint of satisfaction in her voice. Your wife's friend Ryan was assaulted outside a bar last night. Broken jaw or ribs. No witnesses. He's not talking to the police. Unfortunate, I said, though my tone was cool. Apparently, she added, he'd been bragging at the bar about how he stole her from her uptight husband. Not everyone appreciates hearing that. People do say foolish things when they drink, I replied. That day, her attorney softened. Without Ryan as emotional backup and with reality setting in, 34, no job, no home. Emily was starting to accept my terms. She'd get her personal belongings, nothing else. No support, no claim on my assets. The system was almost purged. By the time the following week began, the pieces had fallen into place exactly as I'd planned. Emily's attorney had no leverage left, and Margaret was confident we could finalize without a drawn-out battle. I spent Monday evening reviewing the last batch of financial statements, making sure every cent Emily had funneled into her affair was documented. The hotel charges, the restaurant bills, the lingerie receipts. Each line item was a reminder that she'd gambled everything on Ryan and lost. On Wednesday morning, Margaret called with the words I'd been waiting for. She's agreed. No spousal support, no asset division. You keep the house, the retirement accounts, everything. She'll take only her personal effects and the car her parents bought her. It was done. When we signed the papers later that week, Emily couldn't even look me in the eye. She looked older, smaller, like the air had gone out of her. Her voice was barely above a whisper when she said, "I'm sorry, Lucas, for all of it." I gave her nothing. No reaction. No relief. Just a curt nod as I slid my copy of the documents back into my briefcase. Afterward, I walked out into the cool air with Margaret beside me. "You didn't gloat," she noted. "Revenge doesn't need an audience," I said. "It just needs results." Months passed. The house stayed quiet, orderly mine. I didn't redecorate. I didn't need to. Every lock was new, every account secure. I'd moved on to dating selectively, keeping relationships on my terms, built on trust that could be verified, monitored, and revoked without hesitation. Ryan, I'd heard, was still recovering from his injuries and had lost several contracts after word spread about his reputation. Emily was working retail, part-time, living in a small apartment her parents helped pay for. The woman who once plotted her perfect future was now reduced to clocking in and folding clothes for strangers. The final proof of my victory came one Thursday night when I drove past the Sunrise Lodge on my way to a late meeting. The neon vacancy sign flickered in the dark like it always had. Room 14 was just another door now. I didn't slow down. I didn't need to, because some systems, once purged, stay clean, so long as you never forget where the breach came from. And I never will.